Welcome back to Cowboys Nation News, where today we dive into another significant and admittedly frustrating update on Micah Parsons and his contract situation with the Dallas Cowboys. If you're a fan of the team, or even just a casual follower of the NFL, this story has all the tension, drama, and uncertainty that makes professional football news both fascinating and occasionally exasperating. To set the stage, Adam Schefter, one of the most trusted voices in NFL reporting, provided the latest insight into what appears to be a precarious relationship between the Cowboys front office and Parsons camp. According to Schefter, while a deal could technically happen, there is zero current indication that it will, and the narrative has shifted from negotiations to a possible divorce between the two sides. That's a term Schefter used not lightly, and it carries with it a weight that fans don't hear often unless something is truly amiss. Historically, when we look back at similar situations, this language isn't entirely new in Dallas. For instance, both Dak Prescott and CeeDee Lamb experienced tense contract situations, though the coverage and fan reaction varied. In Dak's case, the headlines back in 2010, even if exaggerated, hinted at a looming separation, and at one point, reporters indicated that the Cowboys and Dak were headed toward free agency discussions. In comparison, the Parsons situation feels eerily similar in tone, but distinct in scale, because we're talking about one of the most impactful defensive players in the league today, a game-changer who has redefined what an edge rusher can do in multiple facets of the game. Since Parsons requested a trade, both sides have effectively stopped communicating. Micah Parsons' camp has reportedly indicated they will not initiate further conversations, putting the onus entirely on the Jones family to make the next move. This standoff is concerning for a couple of reasons. First, it demonstrates a certain organizational failure. For a team that was reportedly very close to finalizing a deal months ago, to now be at a complete standstill is both embarrassing and frustrating for fans, analysts, and anyone paying attention to how elite NFL talent should be managed. The Cowboys have a storied history of ambitious maneuvers in player negotiations, but this situation exposes a disconnect between the front office's approach and the players' expectations. Second, the emotional and relational dynamics are intense. Hurt feelings and bruised egos seem to dominate this narrative. Parsons' camp, understandably, may feel more aggrieved than the Jones family. From the outside, it seems as though Jerry Jones might believe a simple phone call can resolve the impasse. But in reality, the magnitude of the situation is far beyond that. Negotiating with elite talent in today's NFL, especially generational talent like Parsons, requires nuance, timing, and a willingness to bridge gaps beyond standard contract terms. Money, of course, remains a critical factor. A deal in the range of $45 million per year could resolve many of the issues at play, but even with money on the table, relationships and trust remain fragile. The percentage chance of a deal being finalized at this stage is difficult to quantify, and opinions are understandably divided among experts. One path forward involves the Cowboys reaching out proactively to Parsons' camp and acknowledging that mistakes have been made. In this scenario, the Cowboys could offer a slightly shorter contract, perhaps 4 years instead of 5, with top-tier guarantees and a per-year average in the $45 million range. If structured correctly, such a deal would still provide Dallas with significant control over Parsons' future through mechanisms like the fifth-year option and franchise tags. Strategically, it could also allow the team to manage their salary cap more effectively. Historically, players in Parsons' position almost never turn down generational wealth, even if there are personal grievances or questions about the organization. The alternative path is the one that mirrors Dak Prescott's situation more closely. If a deal is not reached before the start of the season, Parsons could end up playing under the franchise tag, which would preserve the Cowboys' flexibility but delay long-term security for the player. In that case, the conversation about his future might shift toward a trade scenario next offseason. While this path isn't impossible, it comes with considerable risk. From a strategic standpoint, playing out the season under a tag without resolving the relationship fully could lead to performance distractions, media speculation, and further tension in the locker room. The impact of such a scenario isn't limited to Parsons alone. It could ripple through the defensive unit, influencing how players prepare, interact, and perform. Having one of the league's premier defensive players in an unsettled contract situation could have subtle but meaningful effects on team chemistry. Beyond the financial and relational considerations, there's also the matter of optics. For the Cowboys, a team with a high-profile owner, a demanding fan base, and a reputation for wanting to control narratives, being publicly seen as at an impasse with a generational talent is not ideal. It feeds into criticism of the front office's decision-making, particularly around player relations and contract strategy. Fans have long expected the Cowboys to make bold moves to retain elite talent, but being stuck in a visible stalemate damages confidence, even among the most loyal supporters. And while all this unfolds, the media is actively covering every twist and turn, amplifying pressure on both sides. Each statement from Schefter, Todd Archer, and other analysts is dissected, leading to speculation, debate, and a sometimes overwhelming sense of drama around what is ultimately a negotiation. From a purely football perspective, the Cowboys still have options. They control Parsons' rights under the fifth-year option and potentially 2 consecutive franchise tags. This control provides leverage, but leverage alone doesn't always translate into productive outcomes if trust and goodwill are absent. The longer this situation lingers without communication, the more difficult it becomes to reach an amicable resolution, which is why the term divorce keeps surfacing. It's not about whether Parsons is talented. He undeniably is. It's about the relationship dynamics, timing, and organizational willingness to prioritize reconciliation over pride. Some observers argue that, realistically, the deal could still be done if the Cowboys structure it correctly, approach the negotiations with humility, and offer the guarantees and compensation that Parsons deserves. Others believe that egos on both sides may prevent such a resolution until circumstances force it, potentially next offseason. Either way, the current status is far from ideal. For Cowboys fans, it's a stressful position. You want your team to succeed on the field, but when a cornerstone defensive player is in a protracted negotiation limbo, it casts a shadow over preparation, morale, and expectations. Every fan conversation, social media post, and analysis segment seems to circle back to one question. Will the Cowboys and Micah Parsons finally reach a deal, or are we headed toward a more contentious resolution that could reshape the team's defensive future? Even with Schefter's expertise and insider knowledge, the answer remains uncertain. This uncertainty inevitably trickles down to every layer of the team, from rookies learning the system to veterans whose confidence in organizational decision-making might be shaken. Historically, the Cowboys have seen similar moments of tension in high-profile negotiations, and the outcomes have been mixed. Players like Tony Romo, DeMarcus Ware, and even more recently Dak Prescott faced contract scenarios that tested the organization's ability to retain top talent without fracturing locker room harmony. In each instance, the resolution, or lack thereof, had measurable effects on team performance, morale, and public perception. For Parsons, the stakes are arguably higher. Unlike some previous stars who had established legacies before contentious negotiations, Parsons' trajectory is still ascending. He is not only a cornerstone for the Cowboys' defense, but also a player whose market value has skyrocketed in a short time, creating immense leverage for his camp and pressure for the front office. The Cowboys' handling of this situation could set a precedent for future negotiations, influencing how elite defensive talent views the organization and its willingness to match market value with mutual respect and communication. Beyond team dynamics, there's also the question of timing and optics. NFL seasons are structured in such a way that off-season negotiations carry outsized importance. Every day without communication feeds media speculation, fuels fan frustration, and can subtly influence team culture. Analysts on national platforms dissect every tweet, report, and subtle indication, turning internal discussions into public debates. The Cowboys, as one of the league's most scrutinized franchises, are especially vulnerable to this type of pressure. Every comment from team leadership, whether carefully worded or off the cuff, becomes material for analysis, further complicating what should be private discussions about player value, role, and compensation. Financial considerations remain a central component, naturally intertwined with strategy and optics. Parsons' camp has signaled expectations in the range of $45 million per year, a figure that reflects both his current impact and projected growth. Structuring a deal that meets these demands while preserving organizational flexibility requires intricate planning. The Cowboys, with their existing salary cap commitments and other star players requiring attention, must balance competitive urgency with long-term sustainability. Missteps could lead to a cascading effect, constraining resources for other key roster positions and potentially leaving the team vulnerable to free agency losses elsewhere. Another layer of complexity arises from the nature of positional value in today's NFL. Edge rushers like Parsons are game changers in a way that few positions match. Quarterbacks can be hurried, offensive lines disrupted, and entire schemes recalibrated by a single elite performer. Losing or underutilizing Parsons due to contract disputes doesn't just affect statistics. It shifts the psychological and strategic landscape of every opponent the Cowboys face. This makes the negotiation stakes exponentially higher than those surrounding positions that, while important, do not exert such immediate influence over game outcomes. From a leadership perspective, this is also a test of organizational culture. Jerry Jones has long cultivated an image of control and decisiveness, and the Cowboys management team is measured by how effectively it navigates sensitive negotiations while maintaining cohesion. Parsons' situation challenges this model directly. It requires patience, humility, and a willingness to compromise, qualities that must be balanced against a desire to assert authority and preserve leverage. Failure in this regard could damage the team's internal reputation, potentially influencing how future draft picks, free agents, and elite talent perceive the franchise. Yet, despite the tension, there is also room for optimism. If the Cowboys approach the negotiation strategically, with clear communication, creative structuring, and a focus on restoring trust, a resolution remains possible. Constructing a deal with guaranteed money, incentives for performance, and mechanisms that protect both sides could satisfy Parsons' expectations while ensuring the organization retains flexibility. Successful precedent exists. Past NFL negotiations have demonstrated that when players feel valued, respected, and secure, performance often exceeds expectations, enhancing team success and fan engagement alike. Another factor worth noting is the evolving landscape of media influence. Social media, podcasts, and round-the-clock coverage mean that every update, rumor, or misstep is amplified, creating a pressure cooker environment for all parties. Parsons, as a highly visible player with considerable influence, is fully aware of this dynamic, and his camp is likely navigating the negotiation with media awareness as a strategic tool. For the Cowboys, the challenge is managing not only the contract itself, but also the narrative surrounding it. How the organization communicates publicly or chooses not to will shape perceptions, fan sentiment, and even internal morale. In some ways, the negotiation becomes a story as much as a business transaction, a balancing act between controlling optics and pursuing the best strategic outcome. Moreover, the implications of this standoff extend beyond a single season. The Cowboys must consider roster construction, future draft planning, and cap management, all in light of uncertainty surrounding Parsons' long-term commitment. Decisions about other defensive players, emerging talent, and potential free agent acquisitions are intertwined with the outcome of this negotiation, creating a web of dependencies that underscores the high stakes involved. For fans and analysts alike, the situation is a case study in the interplay of talent, leverage, communication, and strategic foresight. It highlights how modern NFL organizations must navigate complex human, financial, and competitive dimensions simultaneously. Parsons' performance on the field has made him a franchise-defining player, and the negotiation over his contract is now defining the franchise in a different, equally critical way. The ultimate resolution will not just be about dollars and years. It will signal how the Cowboys manage elite talent, navigate adversity, and reconcile organizational pride with pragmatic decision-making. In the meantime, the league watches closely. Competitors observe the dynamics, gauging how Dallas handles both internal friction and public scrutiny. Other elite players and agents note the level of flexibility or rigidity exhibited by the Cowboys, shaping future expectations and negotiations across the NFL landscape. But before we continue, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and give this video a like. Your support helps us keep bringing you the latest updates on the Dallas Cowboys. Feel free to share your thoughts on the news in the comments as well. Whispers around the NFL landscape have intensified dramatically following the stunning revelation that Aaron Rodgers has officially signed with the Dallas Cowboys, a move that has sent shockwaves through both the NFC and the wider football community. Fans and analysts alike are buzzing, trying to decode the implications of this blockbuster transfer, which could fundamentally reshape the balance of power in the conference. Rodgers, widely celebrated for his unparalleled precision, uncanny field vision, and ability to orchestrate last-minute comebacks, is now expected to inject a level of strategic dominance into Dallas that could alter the trajectory of the team for years to come. The rumor mill is particularly fixated on how Rodgers' leadership will mesh with the Cowboys' offensive line and emerging talent, creating a narrative of potential synergy that could lead to a historic season. Conversations in sports circles are rife with speculation about the chemistry he will develop with the team's receivers, with insiders suggesting that his presence alone could elevate the performance of players who were previously considered secondary assets. While some skeptics question whether Rodgers can adapt to a new system after years of familiarity with his previous franchise, the prevailing sentiment among die-hard fans and commentators is one of excitement and cautious optimism. Every practice, preseason scrimmage, and press interaction is expected to be scrutinized for signs of how quickly Rodgers will imprint his signature style on the Cowboys, fueling ongoing speculation that the NFC is about to experience a seismic shift. The atmosphere in Dallas itself has turned electric, with local supporters flooding social media with predictions, celebratory posts, and fervent debates over the potential impact of Rodgers' arrival. Sports bars, online fan forums, and even casual conversations among residents have been dominated by endless conjecture about how quickly the team can pivot into a championship contender. Analysts are particularly intrigued by the timing of this move, emphasizing that Rodgers' arrival coincides with a roster that already possesses considerable talent, but has often been criticized for inconsistency and a lack of cohesion under pressure. The rumor mill is particularly interested in the behind-the-scenes dynamics of the Cowboys' front office and coaching staff, with speculation swirling over whether they have retooled offensive strategies, practice routines, and play-calling frameworks to maximize the potential of a quarterback of Rodgers' caliber. Even casual observers are being drawn into the conversation, as Rodgers' reputation for clutch performances and late-game heroics fuels expectations of dramatic finishes and memorable victories. Rumors suggest that insiders see Rodgers not merely as a player, but as a transformational figure capable of reshaping team culture, elevating the performance of younger athletes, and creating an aura of inevitability around the Cowboys' pursuit of the NFC title. With preseason training camps now underway, all eyes are on the Cowboys, as every drill, snap, and interaction becomes fodder for pundits and fans trying to predict how quickly Rodgers can translate his storied skill set into tangible success. Social media speculation is particularly rampant, with hashtags, fan polls, and viral content amplifying the narrative that Rodgers' presence could herald an era of dominance previously unseen in the NFC. Inside NFL circles, whispers abound about the strategic machinations that led to this seismic signing, with insiders hinting at a complex web of negotiations, subtle incentives, and timing considerations that ultimately convinced Rodgers to make the leap to Dallas. Analysts are poring over the implications for both the Cowboys and his former team, speculating on whether the move represents a calculated bid for legacy cementation or an audacious gamble with long-term consequences. Rumor has it that Rodgers' influence extends far beyond the gridiron, with suggestions that his experience and mentorship could instill a culture of discipline, adaptability, and mental resilience that has historically eluded Dallas. Observers note that this potential cultural transformation may be as critical as his on-field performance, as a quarterback of Rodgers' stature carries not only skill, but a commanding presence capable of reshaping locker room dynamics, influencing draft strategies, and redefining team identity. Every press conference, training session, and team meeting is now viewed through the lens of anticipation, with pundits and enthusiasts attempting to detect subtle signs of synergy, friction, or unforeseen challenges. The broader league has taken notice, with rival franchises reportedly adjusting scouting reports, defensive schemes, and off-season priorities in response to the news, acknowledging that Rodgers' entry into Dallas could have ripple effects across the entire NFC. Rumors also suggest clandestine meetings between coaches and Rodgers to refine playbooks and identify key matchups, reflecting a strategic depth that fans can only speculate about, fueling an ongoing narrative that the Cowboys are positioning themselves for sustained supremacy under Rodgers' guidance. The media frenzy has intensified as outlets across the country dissect every facet of this high-profile acquisition, offering analysis, conjecture, and speculation that borders on feverish excitement. Columnists and commentators are diving into potential statistical outcomes, projecting the Cowboys' offensive metrics under Rodgers' command, and debating how his unique decision-making style might interact with the team's current roster. Rumors about his potential chemistry with emerging stars are circulating rapidly, with fans imagining highlight reel touchdowns, improbable comebacks, and a revitalized franchise identity. Sports podcasts, talk shows, and online forums are abuzz with detailed predictions, some suggesting that Rodgers could single-handedly tip the scales in the NFC, while others caution that adaptation to a new environment might pose challenges that could temper immediate dominance. Despite the speculative nature of these discussions, the underlying consensus is that Rodgers' arrival represents a transformative moment for the Cowboys, with potential implications that extend beyond a single season to encompass legacy building, playoff ambitions, and the broader competitive landscape. Fan engagement has reached unprecedented levels, with merchandise sales, ticket inquiries, and social media interactions surging as supporters attempt to align themselves with what is perceived as a historic shift in the franchise's trajectory. Even casual observers are now compelled to follow practices, interviews, and preseason developments, as the rumor of Rodgers' dominance has effectively created a nationwide spectacle, blending hope, hype, and uncertainty into a narrative that is impossible to ignore. The ongoing debate over his impact has become a cultural touchstone in the football world, with Rodgers' every move scrutinized, celebrated, or analyzed, reinforcing the idea that the Cowboys' NFC ambitions may never have looked so tantalizingly achievable. As training camps progress and preseason games approach, insiders are hinting at subtle but significant shifts in strategy that suggest the Cowboys are leveraging Rodgers' unique talents to the fullest. Observers speculate that offensive coordinators have been reworking schemes, emphasizing short, precise passing routes, high-tempo drives, and creative play designs aimed at exploiting Rodgers' uncanny ability to read defenses and execute under pressure. Rumors indicate that practices are now intense exercises in situational awareness, adaptability, and mental agility, with Rodgers reportedly taking a hands-on approach to mentoring quarterbacks and receivers, ensuring that timing, trust, and synchronization reach optimal levels before the regular season begins. The media continues to amplify these stories, dissecting training videos and insider reports for signs of early success or unforeseen challenges, feeding a narrative that the Cowboys could redefine offensive efficiency in the NFC. Fans are engaging in vigorous debate, projecting playoff scenarios, and imagining matchups where Rodgers' decision-making could decisively tilt the outcome, while commentators speculate about his potential to inspire other elite players to elevate their performance in pursuit of collective glory. Rumors also suggest that Rodgers' presence has bolstered locker room morale, creating an aura of confidence, resilience, and championship-minded focus that had been somewhat elusive in previous seasons. Every element of team preparation, from film review to conditioning, is now seen through the lens of this quarterback-driven revolution, reinforcing the narrative that Dallas is not merely adding a player, but potentially redefining the competitive hierarchy of the NFC in a way that could have lasting consequences for years to come, and the excitement around these developments continues to grow. The speculative buzz surrounding Rodgers' transition to the Cowboys has now transcended traditional sports discourse, becoming a cultural phenomenon that dominates headlines, online platforms, and public conversation. Rumors continue to swirl about not only the on-field impact, but also the potential commercial, media, and fan engagement implications, with some insiders suggesting that Rodgers' arrival could catalyze record-breaking merchandise sales, sponsorship opportunities, and nationwide attention for the franchise. Analysts and commentators dissect every interview, sideline interaction, and preseason play, seeking clues about team chemistry, adaptability, and the evolving strategies that may solidify Dallas' dominance in the NFC. Fans have become virtual detectives, scrutinizing social media posts, training camp snapshots, and even practice rumors to forecast statistical outcomes, potential matchups, and the psychological impact of Rodgers' leadership on both teammates and rivals. Conversations are rife with anticipation, as speculation suggests that this signing is more than a tactical acquisition. It is a declaration of intent, signaling that the Cowboys aim to assert unrivaled control over the NFC and reshape the competitive landscape in ways that few could have predicted. Behind-the-scenes narratives hint at strategic alliances, confidential team planning sessions, and carefully orchestrated media engagements, all contributing to a sense that Rodgers' influence extends far beyond traditional quarterback responsibilities. With each passing day, the rumor-driven narrative grows, suggesting that the Cowboys, under Rodgers' guidance, may not only pursue the conference title with renewed vigor, but also set a standard of excellence, resilience, and strategic brilliance that could define the next era of football dominance. Enthusiasm, speculation, and intrigue continue to escalate, leaving the sports world captivated by the unfolding drama and the tantalizing possibility that Aaron Rodgers and the Dallas Cowboys are on the cusp of an unprecedented NFC era. That's it for this update. If you enjoyed the video and want to keep receiving exclusive news about the Dallas Cowboys, please subscribe to our channel and give this video a like. We always look forward to your comments and opinions. See you in the next video.